The name pretty much says it all. These bikes combine the best performance that cruisers offer and wrap it in a package dripping with attitude to spare. For this comparison, we decided to stick with the V-twin engine configuration. Because the V-twin is just about the official engine configuration of cruiserdom, that and the fact that no Yamaha V-Max was available for testing. V-twin power, two different ways. The essential difference between these two power cruisers is defined by how their two engines produce power. The Ducati looks to the mid-range and top end for its power, while the Harley puts out tons of torque in the bottom end of its comparatively low-revving engine. Both manufacturers remain true to their roots when it comes to power production. The XDiavel uses the test-threaded DVT 1262cc engine based on the multi-strata 1200 engine and has been massaged for the characteristics that Ducati feels it needs for cruiser duty. The 1262cc displacement is the result of 106.0 mm by 71.5 mm bore and stroke dimensions, bumped from the multi-strata's 106.0 mm by 67.9 mm. The DVT in the name stands for dieseldromic variable timing that varies the timing of both the intake and exhaust camshafts independently, allowing the engine to deliver the broadest passable power curve. The goal is to give as much bottom end as possible and then transition into the top end horsepower that Ducati sporty bikes are known for. The result is a measured torque peak of 83.9 pounds-to-foot at 8,000 revolutions per minute, while the horses max out at 142.6 horsepower at 9,600 revolutions per minute. Cruiser fans will note that the torque peak is a bit high for how cruisers are typically ridden. In fact, this is borne out by the 5,500 rev ceiling of the Fat Bob's Milwaukee 8 engine. So, despite the DVT, XDiavel riders who don't come from the sporting side of motorcycling will need to learn to spin up the engine to get the most out of it. Power delivery isn't the only way in which the XDiavel differs from the Fat Bob. The Duc's ride-by-wire throttle means that it also has traction control and ride modes. However, even in the concrete jungle, we never selected the urban mode, preferring to keep all of the test-threaded ponies at our command with the twist of the smoothly transitioning throttle. However, while the TC is a nice feature, it came on in a heavy-handed manner at lower speeds, like encountering sand when pulling away from a stop and briefly cycling into an on-off throttle hobby horse response on a couple of occasions. The Harley-Davidson Milwaukee 8 114 uses the fun and effective bigger hammer technique for propelling the Fat Bob through the torque curve providing by 1868 cc of hydrocarbon devouring displacement. The 102 mm by 114.3 mm bore and stroke breathe through 4 valve heads while dual counterbalancers quell vibration of the solid-mounted engine. The exhaust note has a hearty depth to it that makes low-speed riding an aero pleasure. You can lug the bike at 1,500 revolutions per minute, and it doesn't feel like it's lugging whatsoever, making slow-speed maneuvers easy. In fact, that heaping helping of torque makes the Harley much more fun to ride around town. At every urban speed we encountered, the Harley chuffed along while at certain speeds the Ducati required the rider to balance the throttle and clutch on occasion. Both bikes exhibited exemplary throttle response in a wide variety of riding situations, once the Ducati stack climbed above 3,500 revolutions per minute. Whether roaring down the freeway or negotiating a series of corners or just moving along in traffic, both bikes took throttle input with the aplomb of well-set-up CV carburetors. No hint of abruptness roughed their demeanors. In fact, the most noticeable feature differentiating the two bikes when cornering was the way they steered. The XDiavel's 240 mm rear tire required more effort to crank the bike over in a turn, and in some instances it also required a slight counter-steering pressure mid-corner to maintain its line. While this isn't a big deal, it was apparent and required a change in riding style as we switched from bike to bike. The wide rear tire made the bike feel like it wanted to stand up in slow-speed turns and corners around town. However, this feeling disappeared at speed through the canyon twisties. The Harley, Despite its narrower handlebar and fat 150mm front tire, steers much lighter than the Ducati. The Fat Bob is easier to turn at all speeds, but it is particularly apparent when changing lines in a high-speed sweeper. The Fat Bob just went where it was told, while the XDiavel required a little more direction. This likely has something to do with the riding positions of the two bikes. The Ducati's pegs are higher and further forward than those of the Harley, leading to a slightly clamshell riding position. The Fat Bob with its more relaxed rider triangle puts the pilot in a better position for negotiating big maneuvers like corners and little exercises like the minute adjustments involved in splitting lanes. In the end, the Harley started out at such a deficit in the objective scores that its amiable nature couldn't drag it out of the scoring hole, and the Ducati's XDiavel won by a total score of 88.2% to the Fat Bob's 86.7%. Really, though, the true winner is the one that speaks to the rider and how they plan on riding the bike. If you prefer a more compact riding position and like surfing a toward curve, the Fat Bob will probably appeal to you. On the other hand, riders looking for maximum performance in a feet-forward riding position will likely gravitate towards the XDiavel with its top-end rush and flashier technology. With these two choices, now is the time to be in the market for a V-twin Bruiser cruiser.